Welcome back to Morning Bible. Today we will be reading through Matthew chapter 8 in the New English translation. So let's dive on in. Matthew chapter 8. After he came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. And a leper approached and bowed low before him, saying, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." He stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing. Be clean." Immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you do not speak to anyone, but go, show yourself to a priest, and bring the offering that Moses commanded as a testimony to them." When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed in terrible anguish." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Instead, just say the words and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those who followed him, "I tell you the truth, I have not found such faith in anyone in Israel. I tell you, many will come from the east and west to share the banquet with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be thrown out into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, just as you believed, it will be done for you." And the servant was healed at that hour. Now when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying down, sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her. Then she got up and began to serve them. When it was evening, many demon-possessed people were brought to him. He drove out the spirits with a word, and healed all who were sick. In this way, what was spoken by Isaiah the prophet was fulfilled. He took our weaknesses and carried our diseases. Now when Jesus saw a large crowd around him, he gave orders to go to the other side of the lake. Then an expert in the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus said to him, "Foxes have dens, and the birds in the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Another of the disciples said to him, "Lord, let me first go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead." As he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And a great storm developed on the sea, so that the waves began to swamp the boat. But he was asleep. So they came and woke him up, saying, "Lord, save us, we are about to die." But he said to them, "Why are you cowardly, you people of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it was dead calm. And the men were amazed and said, "What sort of person is this? Even the winds and the sea obey him." When he came to the other side, to the region of the Gadarenes, two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were extremely violent, so that no one was able to pass by that way. They cried out, "Son of God, leave us alone. Have you come here to torment us before the time?" A large herd of pigs was feeding some distance from them. Then the demons begged him, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." And he said, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep slope into the lake and drowned in the water. The herdsmen ran off, went into the town, and told everything that had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the entire town came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. That was Matthew chapter 8 in the New English translation. A couple things that I highlighted that I want to look at a little bit. Starting in verse 8 sort of goes down to 13, but it says, "But the centurion replied, 'Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Instead, just say the word and my servant will be healed.'" I'll stop the reading there because you can understand what I'm getting at just from that one verse, but you can read all the way down to 13. It's amazing to me, and believe it happens later on in Matthew, or it's in a different one of the Gospels, but the woman at the well, it's sort of the same thing. Non-believing people in this region, so non-Jews, pagans, it's most likely that the centurion would have been a Roman pagan. Centurion was a non-commissioned officer in the Roman army. He was actually Roman, so actually pagan, and believed in the Roman gods. But he even understands that this this man is something special, and if he says something is going to happen, then it's going to happen. And so he's exhibiting more faith in this one interaction than the vast majority of even his apostles do before he's dead and resurrected. Like the thing that Catholics like pointing out is Jesus tells Peter, "On this rock I will build my church." And they take that to mean that he's the first pope. But just a few verses later, Jesus calls Peter Satan and says, "Satan, get behind me." So even the person who the Catholics claim was the first pope and started the Catholic Church, even he is being called Satan. Jesus is in a way saying you can't fully trust anyone with anything. Yes, Peter was one of the apostles, was a key figure in the very early infant stages of the Christian church. No one argues that. But he was a doubter for a lot of the time, sometimes an unbeliever. And Jesus calls him Satan and says, "Get behind me." But if you look at the centurion, he seems to fully understand Jesus' power and tells him, "You should not come into my home. I am not worthy of this. Just say it and it will happen. I know that." And so he's exhibiting such a high level of faith that Jesus has to point it out and says in verse 10, "I tell you the truth, I have not found such faith in anyone in Israel." This centurion in this exchange is more faithful than any one of the apostles from Jesus' own mouth. And I think it's fascinating that two pagans that we see in the Bible turn out to be some of the people with the most faith. And we'll get to the woman at the well when that comes up, but very, very fascinating stuff. The other thing that I had highlighted was verse 34. Then the entire town came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. I'm not going to get into. I've heard some people or seen some people say that this means that people in that region have never gotten saved ever and weird stuff like that. I don't know if there's even any basis for something like that. But what I will say is they just told Jesus to leave their region, even though he is the one and only thing that can actually save them. They're being extremely harassed by these demon possessed men, and Jesus deals with it. I don't think the demons were killed. I'm it's sort of if you think about this exchange a little bit, it's a little bit weird. Because yes, the pigs are killed. They were drowned in the water, but I don't I don't know what happens to the demons. And that's something that I would be very interested to get an answer to, as long as it's biblically sound and has some sort of biblical basis. But anyway, I think it's safe to assume that this region is saved from these demons. And instead of rejoicing and thanking Jesus for what he has done, which obviously no one else has been able to do, and just taking the loss of the herd, as sort of a payment for what has happened and just living with and just moving on with their lives, they make him leave. Not make him leave, but they beg him to leave, and he does. Another interesting thing is that it is very obvious, even with internal evidence, these are very obviously not Jews. Why would Jews have pigs? Pigs are unclean. So Jesus is going to a place of for pagans, for Gentiles, and actually doing acts of service and miracles to Gentiles, almost as a way to show what we are to do now, I would say. I don't know if I would actually fully make the argument, but it seems like Jesus is showing us what to do. There is no more Jew and Gentile, right? We get that later on in the New Testament. And it seems like you could make an argument that even Jesus, especially with the woman well, actually, Jesus did not make any sort of differential treatment. And he helped everyone that needed help. And we need to remember that, and we need to fully take on what Jesus did and help everyone. And that is all I have for today. Tomorrow we will be looking at Matthew chapter 9, and I will see you then.